member of the Education Committee for the NAACP and the Aid for the Randolph Institute. Please join me in welcoming Antonio, whose dedication and leadership continues to inspire and advocate the cause of labor rights and public education. Antonio, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Shelton. And let me first of all thank Lorenzo and those of you at the Labor Community Alliance for putting on such a forum. When it comes to talking about the importance of labor rights and the role of education and empowering our workers, I almost feel like I'm speaking to the choir here. So I'm not going to bore you with a lot of stuff. I'm just going to make a few pointed points and then we'll move on. You know, Florida is not only a right to work state, but it has become increasingly hostile to the labor movement in particular, but all public sector workers in general, with the exceptions of fire, police, and corrections, as they possess a supermajority in state government here. There are currently no checks and balances in our state government that will benefit public sector unions or working people that are striving to make a life better for themselves and their families. As most of you on this call realize, the last legislative session, the Florida legislature passed the most egregious anti-worker, anti-union bill to date in Senate Bill 256. This bill basically stripped public sector workers of their rights to automatic dues deductions from employers, and at the same time, imposed a 60% threshold on a union's density in a right-to-work state, mind you. As a result of this bill, though, the largest local union in Miami-Dade County, which is the United Teachers of Dade, is under direct attack right now from the governor, the Department of Education, the Public Employees Relation Commission, which is the appointed governmental agency that are tasked with certifying unions as the collective bargaining agency in the state. So we're seeing a concerted efforts, not only to attack our right and freedoms as unionists, but also to strip us of the things that we hold dear, the ability to control an enforceable contract and govern or manage our wages, working conditions, and benefits. You know, what has become apparently clear is that the governor and the Department of Education has joined forces with what's known as the Freedom Foundation, which is out of the state of Washington. They're a conservative think tank whose entire focus relies on decertifying and eliminating not only teacher unions and other employee unions across the country, but United Teachers of Dade in particular, and their contract with Dade County Public Schools that we've built over the last 50 years. The Freedom Foundation has created and backed the phony front group here in Miami-Dade County, known as the Miami-Dade Education Coalition, to challenge United Teachers of Dade as the exclusive bargaining agent representing some 24,000 education professionals here in Dade County. It is because of these type of issues that it is more important than ever to educate our workers and union members on their rights, their freedoms, and what's truly at stake when the state government employs these type of union busting tactics to turn us all into at-will employees. You know, as a result, right now, Senate Bill 256, there are over 30 local unions who have lost their ability to represent workers in the workplace when it comes to collective bargaining and enforcement of their contracts with their employers. As a matter of fact, we here at UTD are up against these ramifications of such actions even as we speak. Besides the fact that we had to convert over 13,000 dues paying members to an alternate method of payment for their dues while the 60% threshold, while at the same time attempting to meet a 60% threshold to avoid recertification election, we are in the crosshairs of this new reality that all of us as public sector workers are facing today. United Teachers of Dade is the only local teachers union in the state of Florida that actually has an intervener challenging us on the ballot for the rights to be recognized as the exclusive bargaining agent. The Public Employee Relations Commission, who most of us know as PERC, they've already scheduled a certification election for Dade County Public School employees that offers our employees three options. The first option, and quite frankly, is simply to maintain the United Teachers of Dade as the exclusive bargaining agent. The second option would be to choose no union representation at all. Or the third option, which is contrary to all popular belief, is to choose the phony front group, the Miami-Dade Education Coalition, to represent employees within our bargaining unit. Now, due to the size of our bargaining unit, this election will be done via vote by mail through PERC. With ballots would be going out in mid-August, around August 13th, and they're to be counted around September 24th. With the margin of victory must be 50% plus one of those who actually vote to be determined who is going to fully represent a workforce of some 24,000 here. It is imperative that workers understand the importance of advocating for workers' rights as well as union rights, not only on the local, state, but more importantly, the national level, especially when corporate interests are pushing anti-worker laws and legislations like Project 2025, which they have been testing in some of the tenants here in the state of Florida over the past few years. I don't have to tell you, former President Donald Trump has spent weeks right now distancing himself from Project 2025. This is a sprawling 900-page plus manifesto that seeks to create a blueprint for his next presidency if he's to be elected. They build this thing as a vision built by conservatives for conservatives. You know, when I go to their website, it says things like the effort dismantles the accountable deep state, taking power away from leftist elites and giving it back to the American people and a duly elected president, according to its website. Could you imagine a guy making a statement as a president that we only have to worry about one more election? Because if we get past this one and he gets elected again, we shouldn't have to worry about elections after that at all. This is a statement made by somebody who's currently running to get back in office here in this country. You know, for
30
months,
seconds. 30 seconds.
there are people in academics that have been sounding the alarm about Project 25. We need to seriously make sure our members understand what's at stake, because it calls for eliminating the Department of Education. It calls for eliminating Head Start. It calls for doing some things to Title I unimaginable in a town where 90% of our schools are Title I programs. You know, quite frankly, in closing, public education as we know it would cease to exist under these particular guidelines. We need to look no further, as I mentioned, as the Title I programs, because that tells it a lot. Title I funds at a little over $18 billion in 2024. This is the largest federal program for K-12 schools, and it's designed to help children from low-income families. The conservative blueprint would encourage lawmakers to make the program a block grant for states with few restrictions on how the money can be used. And over a 10-year period, they would phase out Title I entirely. I could go on, but as I mentioned, I'm on the clock according to Glenda. So I'd like to turn the next portion over to one of our rank and file teachers, Ms. Crystal E. Team, for a testimony of some personal impacts to her and her students on why we must focus on our collective labor rights. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, my first Vice President Antonio White. My name is Krista Etienne, and I am a 7th grade civics teacher here in Miami-Dade County. I teach at West Homestead K-8. Personally, I don't understand the difficulty in understanding how important labor is to education. Right now, the reason why they attack the unions, the teachers' unions specifically, is because they know that it is the only thing keeping them from completely privatizing public education in the state of Florida, which is why they've gone above and beyond out of their way to try to attack us. It also is the security that allows me as a teacher to know that as long as I'm teaching truth to facts, that I can teach my students without fear. I know there are a lot of teachers who self-censor. I don't do that. And I don't do that because I know I'm a member of my union, and I know my union has my back, and they've shown that. For me personally, as well as other teachers that I know that have needed them. It also gives me the confidence I need to go to the school board meetings every month and let them know that some of their policies are not appropriate for not only our teachers, but our students as well. And even this past school board meeting, I was able to go and tell them that it was abhorrent that they advanced 20 pages worth of promotions for administrators when they're still bargaining with the teachers union. So clearly, if the district's focus is the administrators, the only person that has the teachers back is the unions. So I know for me personally, I know if if the unthinkable happened and I were not to have a union, I would not be a teacher anymore because I know the security of my union allows me to be a teacher. But I think people don't realize the significance of what's happening with public education. They're spending millions and millions of dollars to dismantle public education in the state of Florida. And the state of Florida is ground zero. We are the testing ground for the rest of the country. And Miami-Dade specifically has been the testing ground for the state. Many people don't realize that in Miami-Dade County, last year, only 59% of our students went to a traditional public school. That means the other 41% are either homeschooled, charter schooled, or private school. The voucher program took $4 billion away from public education last year. $4 billion. 80% of those students were already in private schools. Those parents were already able to afford those private schools. You are literally living, every day we're living through a new history, but you are literally watching the dismantling of an institution of our country, an institution that has been around for generations. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Can there be improvements? Absolutely. But we can't make those improvements when they're actively defunding us. So for me as an educator, the purpose of my union is not just to advocate for me and my salary, but it's to advocate for me and my profession and my students. Thank you for having me.
You tough, Glenda.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Antonio, for your insightful remarks and for sharing your valuable perspectives. I will now transition into Block 2. So Block 2 will focus on affordable housing. And the theme for this particular block is creating homes for everyone. We'll explore a couple of solutions and successful models for addressing the housing crisis and discuss how communities, government, and organizations can collaborate to ensure affordable and accessible housing for all. We're honored to have Adrian Madriz as our speaker. Adrian is the co-executive director of the Development and Infrastructure at Struggle for Miami's Affordable and Sustainable Housing, SMASH. SMASH, led by grassroots leaders from Liberty City, Overtown, and Little Havana, alongside, I'm sorry, can you, Lorenzo, did I hear you? Can you all hear me?
We can hear you well.
Okay, sorry, I thought I heard something. Thanks, Carolina. So SMASH focuses in Liberty City, Overtown, and the Little Havana area, alongside experts, experienced professionals, addresses slumlords and gentrification issues in Miami. Adrian and his neighbors founded SMASH to combat slum conditions without causing gentrification. In 2022, SMASH opens its first affordable housing unit cooperative in Liberty City for 7 housing justice leaders. Adrian, a child of Latinx immigrants and a passionate community organizer, holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science and Screen Arts from the University of Michigan. SMASH focuses on providing expedient and dignified housing solutions for extremely low-income families through the community land trust model. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Adrian Madriz. Adrian, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nucleus, and it's good to see you again. It's been a while. So I remember when Nucleus was at the AFL-CIO, we did a lot of work together. So very happy to be here. I want to go ahead and share my screen so we can get this presentation started. I know I'm being kept to a very tight schedule. So first, why are we here? Well, to put it simply, the rent in Miami is too damn high. And I don't think I have to really prove it, but I think I'm going to provide you with some evidence to that, as you can see here. Miami New Times recently named Miami the most rent-burdened city in the United States. Rent burden means that you're paying more than the HUD recommended amount of 30% of your income to your rent or to your housing. In Miami, over half of our residents are paying 50% or more of their income just to be able to house themselves. That does not include utilities, and that does not include any other expenses. So another thing that I want to point to is, well, how high is too high? The median rent in Miami is $2,077 per month for 690 square feet. The average 2-bedroom is $2,600 per month. That is very, very high. And that's especially high when you look at data that points to how low it should be. Then you also look at ownership as a potential solution. And unfortunately, owning is also very expensive. The median housing price, if you want to buy a home, is $655,000, according to Realtor.com in the city of Miami. And in Miami-Dade County broadly, I happen to know that it's about $620,000. So it is very, very expensive to both rent and own. And then if you're keeping in mind those numbers about renting, you should know that every single year, United Way comes up with something called the ALICE report. ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Educated. It's a demographic of people that live in our county that aren't poverty level, but that exist in this in-between, this weird in-between between extreme poverty and middle class. And so they do an analysis every single year to see what it's like to live in this particular category of income. And it's very hard. They've put together two different kinds of budgets, a survival budget, and I think it's called a comfort budget or something like that. Stability budget, excuse me. So if you look at the survival budget, what they're saying that we should be paying,
Yes.
if you're this kind of person, and whoever's speaking, if you can mute yourself, I really appreciate that. Thank you. If you're at this income level, your housing and your rent should be no more than $681 if you're a single adult. And if you have 2 adults and 2 children, it should be no more than $800. Obviously, with the median rents being where they're at, we're nowhere near where this is. So there's a whole chunk of our population that is very, very far away from being able to afford anything on the open market. And then if you're thinking, well, not everybody's in destitute poverty, there are some people in the stability budget, take a look at the stability budget. This is a slightly higher income bracket, and the numbers still don't look good. You shouldn't be paying more than $977 per month if you're a single adult. And then if you are an adult with two adults, 2 in childcare, you have to pay no more than $1,367 per month. And again, the median rent is over $2,000 a month. So we're facing an extreme challenge here when it comes to affordable housing. And it's something that we talk about all the time at our organization at SMASH. It's the primary reason that I do the work that I do. The data does not lie, but also the stories don't lie. And I have seen some of the most dramatic things that you can possibly imagine when it comes to the things that people have to do in order to be able to survive, especially when it comes to having to pile more than the number of people that the house is built for into a particular house or into an apartment. And especially in Little Havana, some of you may not know this, Little Havana is actually the densest neighborhood in America, meaning that there are more people living per square foot in Little Havana than any other part of the country. That's even more than Manhattan. That's even more than San Francisco, Los Angeles. And the reason for that is because there are apartments that are studios or 1-bedrooms, and there are as many as 5, 6, 7, 8 people living in those apartments because they simply have nowhere else to go. We have a significantly high number of people that after they divorce, they continue to live together because they can't afford to move out. If you break up with your partner or your spouse or whomever, you first got to figure out where you're going to live before you break up with them, basically. Otherwise, you're stuck together. And that's just kind of how it is. We have a significant number of people that are also still living with their parents, even though they're in their 30s, sometimes in their early 40s. It's just because they don't have anywhere else to go. So right now, the problem is very big. Now, in terms of talking about the problem, this is a really great website that I recommend to everybody. It's called affordablehousingframework.com. We use this framework for all of our policy prescriptions when it comes to the affordable housing crisis. But essentially, this not only details what the problem is, it also details how we're going to solve it. And it details all the different policies that if Miami-Dade County were to adopt them tomorrow, we would essentially be able to guarantee housing as a human right for everybody. And these are very common sense solutions. But we're going to go through some of the demographic data as well. So we do have an explosive crisis. 35% of households, 300,000 in Miami-Dade County, make $35,000 or less a year. 250,000 of these households are cost burdened, spending over 30% of their income on rent or mortgage. If you want to break it down by race, We have it broken down here. Those struggling to pay for their housing are more likely to be Black and Hispanic. 53% are Black, non-Hispanic households that are cost burdened, as are 52% of Hispanic households of any race compared to 37% of white non-Hispanic households. This plan then goes in to recommend a number of different solutions, the principal one of which is the development or preservation of units of affordable housing. So how many housing units do we need? Well, we need to either preserve or develop 210,000 households by the year 2030. That's what the recommendation of this plan is. And I should let you know that this is a recommendation that was made before the pandemic. It was made in 2020. So it could be much, much higher now because of all of the distress that we've been under because of the pandemic and the post-pandemic recession. So there's a significant amount of need for sure. And this also details all the different policies that we could embark on in order to be able to address it. A number of other policies fall into one of these four categories. You can remember these categories by their acronym PALM. PALM stands for preservation, assistance for renters and owners, land, and money for development. And it basically summarizes what the main recommendations are. When it comes to preservation, we should be creating acquisition and rehab opportunities. We should form public sector, interagency councils to address this problem. When it comes to assistance for renters, we should require eviction and foreclosure diversion programs, provide more funding for housing assistance, extend the required notice periods for evictions. And it's not listed here, but also rent control is one of the main recommendations of this plan. Land, we should identify initial inventory of parcels that we can use for affordable housing. And then money, we need to advocate for major federal stimulus, fully fund the Sadowski Affordable Housing Trust Fund in the state, consider new sources of revenue such as a vacancy tax, and create a fund collective that coordinates corporate, philanthropic, and public funding sources. Again, folks, this is not an insurmountable challenge. If we pass these policies, which by the way, these policies have been sent to Miami-Dade County and they have confirmed that they have received them, then we can basically erase the affordable housing crisis in a matter of 10 years. And then we can also lift all of these people out of poverty because housing, because it's such a big factor in terms of what people spend on their overall budget, if we reduce the cost of housing, we can essentially eliminate poverty for all of those different households. So because we've sent this plan to Miami-Dade County, we are in a position now where we're waiting for them to figure out if they're actually going to do it. And so we want to highlight what we're doing in order to be able to build power to be able to pass this plan and similar procedures. So our theory of change is when we build enough people power, we can change any policy and attain housing justice. And we want to pass something called the Miami Housing Justice Agenda, which includes the framework, but also includes some values documents like the Homes for All Green Book and the People's Orientation to Regenerative Economy, so that we can have as comprehensive of policy change as possible to our housing system. We need 1.5 million pledges to this agenda in order for us to feel confident that we not only can scratch for victory, but we can dominate. We can reign supreme with the values of housing justice in Miami-Dade County. And this is how we build power for housing justice at SMASH. We organize tenants, we do transformation of opponents into allies, we research housing and technology development, like 3D printing. That's something that we've actually done a little bit with Nucleus. We invest in community land trusts and shared ownership models, and we also do policy advocacy. We want to build power in all of these different areas. And I know I'm over time, but I'm over time. So anyway, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, thank you, Adrian, for your commitment and your tireless effort to expand affordable housing and advance housing justice here in Miami-Dade County. Your work with SMASH continues to make an impact, man. And I just want to give you, just big ups for the dedication and creating a sustainable solution for our community. So thank you for that. With that, I would now like to transition us to our third block. Our third block is entitled Inclusive Communities, Advocating for Immigrants' Rights and Worker Protection. And in this section, we'll discuss the importance of inclusive policies that support immigrants and protect worker rights. We'll highlight success stories and effective legislation that promote equality, safety, and opportunities for all members of society, regardless of their background and their zip code. To lead us in this discussion, we're privileged to have Senator Dwight Bullard, Senior Political Advisor of Florida Rising. Florida Rising is the most active non-gubernatorial organization in Florida, uniting multiracial movements to promote economic and racial justice. Under Dwight's leadership, the organization is dedicated to empowering underserved communities, creating a state where everyone can thrive, safe, happy, and healthy. With a rich background in education and community activism, Dwight has been a vital force in advocating for essential reforms, such as tuition equity and minimum wage increases. Florida Rising, under his guidance, not only amplifies marginal voices, but also fosters a sense of collective agency, driving transformative change for the people of Florida. Please join me, you all, in welcoming my dear friend, Senator Dwight Bullard.
Thank you so much, Nucleus. Appreciate the invitation to the call. And just want to start off first by encouraging everyone to dare to dream. Dreaming of a place, dreaming of a Florida, dreaming of a Miami, dreaming of a wherever you are, that looks, feels, and is shaped by your energy. Oftentimes, we don't allow ourselves the ability to dream big and recognize our own power. Florida Rising is a member-led organization, as Nucleus laid out in his introduction. We're the largest independent political organization in the state of Florida. We do work in multiple counties around the state, really around 5 issue areas. Housing justice, and I want to thank Adrian for really being a forward thinker in that space. Criminal systems reform, voting rights and democracy expansion, climate justice, and reproductive rights. We know that there's so much more that Floridians need to fight for, and so Florida Rising finds itself a part of a larger statewide coalition called Florida for All, because we want to welcome in all folks from all walks of life into the collective struggle to make this state as visionary as you thought about in the notion of daring to dream what this state could look like for you. We are under a firm belief, right, that we are the answer to the questions that we have. The things that we're looking to excel at, to create, sit within us. And so through the process of political education, member-led instruction, we at Florida Rising determine what our course is going to be as we engage in policy discussions at the state and local level, as we advocate for electoral politics, and more importantly, as we organize community around the things that they need. We have to be nimble, we have to be malleable enough, and we have to be empathetic and compassionate enough to understand that we, as an institution or organization, do not have all the answers to all the questions, but you, as a collective, through your energy, through your effort, and through your work, we then have a shared struggle and therefore can find value in the collective and the ability to answer all of the questions that we have here in the state. We've seen over the last few years an attack on personhood, an attack on identity, an attack on ethnicity, an attack on our ability to pay for things in terms of the push to keep us in poverty. And so collectively, we have to fight back against all of those things. You know, the threat of Project 2025 is really, as Tony White laid out earlier, is this right-wing playbook to really dismantle the building blocks of democracy that we've created in this country. Unfortunately for us in Florida, we've been experiencing Project 2025 for quite a number of years. When we think about the legislation, the efforts, and the attacks on all of our collective communities, we know all too well that Project 2025 is here. The dismantling of civil and human rights, the attacks on our children in the classroom, the attacks on LGBTQ plus people, the attacks on immigrant rights, the attacks on history, the attacks on you name it. We've been experiencing this for quite some time here in the state of Florida. And in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. But it can no longer just be about being sick and being tired. In order to change illness to wellness, it requires a we. Less I, more we. And so collectively, we have to be about the business of driving the solutions home for our communities. And we want to invite you in to spaces like Florida Rising. We want to invite you in to spaces like Florida for All. We want to invite you into spaces like SMASH that are highlighted on this call, and so many other organizations doing the work, because your individual frustration does not have to be that. Whatever you want to work on, there's somebody out in the community engaging in that process. You know, Florida Rising, as I mentioned, we can't do it alone. And so we are part of the Florida Immigrant Coalition as we work to collectively fight for immigrant rights. You know, we support young adults like Florida Student Power Network, and we build in coalition with folks like Power U. Florida Rising would not exist had it not been for Miami Workers Center here in Miami, who New Florida Majority and thusly Florida Rising was birthed from. So there are a myriad of different organizations doing the work and doing good quality work. But I also want to put an emphasis on the people who are doing the work, which is you and I. I am honored tonight to be joined by one of our members, Ms. Anna Henry from Broward County, who's going to tell you a little bit about her story, but also why she chooses to stay in the fight with Florida Rising. So I want to welcome Anna.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you, Brother Dwight, for the invite. Definitely. It's a pleasure meeting everybody. So basically, back in November, I was being harassed by a landlord, and it led to the point where legal aid would not assist me at all, to the point that the one of the paralegals explained to me that Florida residents don't have rights. And so it led to me being homeless for 90 days. And so I decided to myself, I said, well, I need to start a campaign, because it's no longer about just working. It's about how much you're getting paid. Because what I said to myself was that I work for the county. I should be able to have enough income to be able to stabilize my daily living. And I had recently got a job with the city of Hollywood. And I said, I should still be able to stabilize my way of living. And so I said, how is it that you got keys to the city and keys to the county and don't have keys to your own front door? That's a problem. And so over time, I've been doing a lot of research. Definitely, there is a plague in the US that is trying to scratch itself back to the surface. And when it comes to poverty, it goes into the criminal justice system, it goes into the mental health system, it goes into all the systems, the educational system. It goes into a lot of the systems that we utilize to be able to bring a chance of survival in our society. And so when we talk about these different things that are, that's causing such a transgression in our day-to-day, we have to look in the history and think about what the past has been already, what things have been written down in the past in order to rewrite them for a better present and a future. And so I've learned over time that the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a major dilemma in the mental health realm and the basic essentials of living. And so not being able to alleviate certain issues that we are, because like we was talking about SMASH with Adrian and different organizations coming together, we definitely have to stick together and definitely continue to put forth the effort to try and make more of a better what can I say, noise, to let them know that we're not going to stand for this. This is not the America that we actually want to fight for when it comes down to the rules and the regulations that they're trying to actually stick us with, as far as the stipulations they're trying to put us under. It's not fair, and I don't think we should actually stand for it.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for being a part of Florida Rising. And I just want to, again, invite people to dare to dream bigger, be the master of your own destiny, and start creating real life solutions for change. Appreciate you, Nucleus.
Cool. No, thank you, Dwight, for your insightful comments and your powerful call to action. And also thank you, Anna, for sharing your story. Thank you so much. And with that, I did want to move us to our final segment for this discussion here tonight. Block 4 is entitled Transforming Healthcare, Ensuring Affordability and Access for All. So this segment here is going to give us an insight into strategies to make healthcare more affordable and accessible. We'll explore different policy initiatives and community efforts that have been used to improve healthcare outcomes and reduce costs. We are privileged tonight to be guided through this critical discussion by Terry Falbo. Terry is a healthcare activist and board member of Medicare for All Florida Incorporated. Medicare for All Florida is a grassroots group of Floridians dedicated to ending the state's healthcare crisis. They advocate for a single-payer healthcare system, believing that healthcare is a human right. The organization is a nonpartisan and positive in its messaging, aiming to provide healthcare and prescription drugs to everyone, regardless of their ability to pay and their employment status, age, or any other factor. Terry brings a wealth of experience to this discussion. She was a union organizer for a decade and has been involved in numerous justice struggles, including efforts to unite labor and community struggles. Her extensive background and dedication make her a invaluable voice in the fight for an accessible and affordable healthcare system. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Ms. Terry Falbo.
Thank you very much for that very nice introduction. Yes, I have been working on the issue of healthcare and healthcare as a human right for a very long time, too long. I wouldn't have thought we were still in this position for all the time, but that goes with a lot of the things that I've been working on for decades, unfortunately. So nationwide, there's about 8% of the people in the United States that still that are still uninsured, despite steps made by the Affordable Care Act that did help many people. Here in Florida, it is more like 11%, which is about 2 million people that are uninsured in Florida. There are efforts, and our organization, Medicare for All Florida, are open to and helping all efforts to help people in any way. So there are efforts for Medicaid expansion to get that onto the ballot for 2026, and we've been collecting signatures on that. However, that even if we get that and it passes in 2026, it won't take effect till 2027 if everything goes right and if things aren't challenged and, you know, different obstructions and whatever. So, and then even with that, it would help close to 1 million people, but that still leaves 1 million uninsured. And it still actually leaves most people underinsured. People don't realize the majority of people in the United States who have insurance are actually underinsured. There are many things that their insurance does not pay for, that they can't afford to, that they scrimp on things that they need, or they don't go to the doctors because of copays, because of deductibles, because of high prescription costs, etc. And a lot of people have medical debt, and that's another thing. We just got Orange County to dedicate some funding to eliminate medical debt of Orange County residents. But that is a major problem, and the major cause of bankruptcy in the United States is still medical debt, which is like unheard of in most economically advanced countries. People just, they don't even understand that, you know, term. But so we say the solution is a single payer universal system that covers everything that your doctor says you would benefit from, that, you know, your doctor of choice says that you would benefit from. No, not just some very basic low level care, but everybody should have the good, you know, the best care, actual medical care that they need, and it should be approved, and we shouldn't have the middleman profiteers making those decisions. And there have been studies done by healthcare economists that show that that is the major cause, that we of such high prices and lack of people being able to obtain healthcare is because we have close to 1,000 different payers, networks, programs, etc., that the doctors have to look through, or who are people in their offices, to find out which patient is covered for what under which of these, okay, instead of just knowing that they would be covered. So the doctors, nurses, and healthcare economists and patient advocate groups, including advocates for underserved communities, have all been very involved in the construction of the actual Medicare for All bill, which has changed over the numbers over the years, but we're still trying to get enough legislators to pass it. But why don't they? Majority of Democrats have signed on to it, but still a large number have not. Why? Because a lot of them get a lot of money from the corporations, the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies that make money from not providing care to everyone, and from having their extreme inefficient system. Okay, so we have a Patients Over Profits pledge, which I am glad to say that the next person I will be introducing has signed. Emily Rodriguez is running for Florida House District 98, and she's called this area home for her entire life. Her passion for advocacy was sparked during her early college years after being sexually assaulted on campus. Through her experiences as a survivor, she's become a dedicated advocate for victims' rights. Emily graduated from UCF with a bachelor's in political science and is currently pursuing a master's in political communication at UF. While working in the Florida Senate under Senator Chevron Jones, she assisted in the passage of several bills and procurement of millions of dollars in state funding, helped resolve hundreds of constituents' issues, and planned community engagement events. Now she hopes to continue her advocacy for survivors in the Florida legislature, where she hopes to pass Emily's plan, a survivors-focused policy package, in addition to fighting for our reproductive freedoms, addressing the property insurance crisis, increasing healthcare access, and expanding affordable housing options for Floridians. Emily?
so much, Terry. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for having me here today. It's great to be here with so many familiar faces, and I have a union background myself, so I really want y'all know that I will always be standing with you guys. So thank you, Ty. So a little about my own personal healthcare journey that Terry asked me to share about. Since I've been campaigning, unfortunately, I had to lose my health insurance since I am no longer in a full-time position to run for office. And unfortunately, I did get severely injured. I had a very bad injury in my left hand where a big piece of glass went into it. It severed several nerves, cut an artery, and I was essentially disabled in my left hand for almost 3 months, and I still don't have full functioning ability in it. This injury's made the campaign very difficult, and I have a crazy amount of medical expenses that I am going to have to deal with very soon, unfortunately. And as Terry mentioned, we really need to expand Medicaid, but which is the first thing that we need to do, but what's really the goal should be a single payer healthcare system to cover folks, whether they're employed or not, whether they're in a transitionary period, regardless of age or medical conditions. I worked in the Florida Senate and I saw that unfortunately, Medicaid expansion and any type of policy like this is quite literally a joke to these Republicans. I have seen them laugh about, how unrealistic it is in their minds to get this done. And it's crazy to me that people's lives and their health is really not being taken seriously at the state level. And as Terry mentioned, a lot of these legislators unfortunately get a lot of money from the insurance companies, the hospital associations, these groups, including some Democrats as well. So it's difficult to know where their votes are really with the people or for profits at the end of the day. So it's really important that we pass legislation. Here in Florida, I know Medicare for All Florida has been pushing the Healthy Floridians Act that will create a single payer system here. Of course, I know in a Republican-led legislature, unfortunately, it's very tough to get these bills even heard. So I think that as this ballot initiative is really a great way to force lawmakers to take this into account, and that's going to take a lot of us folks here on this call to be able to educate people. We know a lot of people are under the misconception that these systems won't work, that they are too expensive, when in reality, the current system doesn't work. And this current system is what is draining people's pockets. I mean, almost 30% of the administrative fees are wasted. Over 30% of the costs go to administrative fees, whereas a single payer system would be less than 2%. We would be saving so much money, taking care of so many folks here. Over 2 million folks who don't have health care, and many of them are here in South Florida. I believe I just saw a stat that it's almost 1 million Floridians here in South Florida alone don't have health insurance. So it's really important that we educate people in our community about how it's really important to get this system in place and make sure they know that this is actually going to be cost savings. It's really going to help a lot of folks get coverage. It's not going to make their own costs increase. They will actually come out of this with better healthcare themselves as well. So it's really important that we spread the word about Medicare for All here in Florida and nationwide, and make sure that lawmakers know about it, but even our friends and neighbors and community members know about it, and they should be aware of this ballot initiative that we're pushing. And I would love to help support that, Terry, as well. I know we're running out of time, so I will finish up. But again, my name is Emily Rodriguez. I am not taking any corporate donations from the healthcare system or any corporate donor here, because that's what I really believe.
That was excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of that first part. And here at LCA, we always strive to give you some forums that are different. And this time, when approaching elections, we usually have this, the forum where the candidates come and tell you whatever they memorized, and it's going to be, like their spiel, and they repeat it over and over again. And sometimes we even know their jokes if you have gone to a couple of them, right? So what we heard so far in that first part is, we heard the teachers union, Antonio and Crystal presented really well what's happening with the education, the public education access in the state, how it is under attack. and we heard about labor rights being under attack. We also heard after from Adrian about housing. You know, that there's a lot going on over there, and there is in fact, a housing crisis in the state, particularly more evident in South Florida. In Central Florida, we have, you know, St. Petersburg, Tampa, and Orlando are the ones that are seeing the most impact outside of South Florida. And so this is not just pervasive over here. And then we have also a huge crisis with healthcare access, as Terry and Emily just presented to us. So we have on the call tonight some candidates, and we're going to welcome now a really good friend of LCA and someone that was originally, in her previous run in 2020, she was endorsed by LCA when we were still doing endorsements, when we still had the 501c4 status. Jen is a passionate advocate and a second-generation Florida native, born and raised in North Miami Beach. Although politically active since the age of 17, Jen commitment intensified in 2016 when she witnessed the fallout of the DNC actions during the presidential primary. Inspired by the grassroots movement, she courageously challenged entrenched incumbents, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, in 2020, garnering nearly 30% of the vote and raised close to $400,000 during the pandemic. What her campaign apart what sets her campaign apart is her volunteering and community gardens, conducted beach cleanups, and provided essential services to veterans and families in need. So what sets her apart was her unwavering focus and the community service. Through her podcast, Generational Change, and her continued community initiatives, Jen is dedicated to transforming politics into a platform of service. As she heads into the primary in August 20th, her vision for a more equitable and compassionate South Florida is clearer than ever. So please help me welcome Miss Jennifer Berman.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you, Carolina. Very nice introduction. I see a bunch of people I haven't seen in a while. So good to see you. Hi, 305 people. Now that 305 is no longer part of our district, I admit I've been remiss in visiting some of those people down there. So my name is Jen Perlman, and for people who do not know me, I am running up here in District 25, challenging Debbie in the primary. This is my second, and it's a whole different game this time. The operation we have right now is incredible. We're hitting more than 5,000 doors a week. We have an operation like I can't even have fathomed in 20. So like the fact that we got close to 30%, we didn't even hit anywhere near what we're hitting now. So it's really exciting. But you know, when I'm listening to everything that affects everybody here, and you specifically talking about housing and healthcare, what is very clear to me is that they have the same problem, in that our legislators are bought by the same corporate donors, which are preventing us from having affordable housing and healthcare. Both of those things are being caused by corporate predatory greed. And we see that basically in every industry. So the goal of my campaign, and what I'm going to do, is get the corporate money, PAC money out, all the special interest money out. I am sick and tired of these corporate tools. I really am. It's absurd. I don't need the job. I don't need the money, and I'm not looking for a career. So if people want to know what I'm about, my number one is single payer healthcare. I will fight to that forever. That to me will help the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time. So that to me is always going to be my number one. My number two is housing. And obviously that is a combination of things that are both state and federal. Unfortunately, a lot of our nonsense here that we're dealing with is a Tallahassee situation. But imagine what would it be if you had a federal representative that wasn't beholden to, I don't know, real estate developers, that was using their platform to actually fight for you. It isn't so much about what it can do in Tallahassee. I can do nothing in Tallahassee. I don't even really want to go to Tallahassee. But the idea is right now we have nobody. We don't have any federal. I don't see any federal representative, not in South Florida. You got Maxwell, maybe up there where some of you guys are, but down here, nobody's fighting for stuff like that. Debbie has taken 100,000 this cycle alone from real estate developers. That's just this cycle. So, how can we expect people that are on the take to help fight for us for anything? So that's what I'm about. Oh, and living wage jobs, also a really key thing. I would suggest that housing would be affordable if people earned a living wage. So the issue isn't so much the housing as it is the money. So if everybody was, and I'm a big proponent of federal job guarantee. If anybody is interested in really knowing more about that in detail, please check out my website, gen2024.org. I know it's pipe dreamish, but Bernie just started talking about Medicare for all in 2015, and now we're like demanding it, like we're not going back. So this is sort of my dream for the idea of federal job guarantee, is to plant that seed. But the gist of it is, guys, I am just somebody who is fighting for the least of these. I have no personal agenda. I've never aspired to this job, but I'm willing to do this job. So this is an offering. And right now I've got 3 weeks left. And this seems to be a call of very labor-oriented, progressive people. So if you guys would be interested in unseating our longest-serving corporate tool sitting here in South Florida, then please help us. Seriously, we're down to 3 weeks. So we could always use help, and I'd appreciate it. Yeah. So I don't know if that's sufficient. Should I answer some questions? Carolina, I don't have a stump. You were saying everybody gets used to the thing. I have no speech. I have none of that.
Excellent. And that's why we like you, because you always speak from the heart. Thank you, Jen. And so we're going to move on. Hopefully some folks from here connect to your campaign. We dropped your link in the chat.
Yes.
And volunteer, donate, do whatever. We really need a better system of politics, and Jen is one of them.
Dottie. Hi,
Dottie. Okay. And Dottie is the next one actually speaking. So let me introduce to you. 1 second, because we had to do some quick changes. Dottie Joseph, Representative Joseph, is here with us tonight. She's a dedicated public servant, a candidate for Florida House in District 108, and a lifelong commitment with community empowerment and civil rights advocacy. Born in Haiti and raised in North Miami, Dottie attended the Yale University and Georgetown University Law Center. We are extremely happy and honored to have here our friend, Representative Joseph.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. As I told Lorenzo and company, I actually don't have an election this cycle. I don't have any opposition for the first time in my legislative career. So I am not technically a candidate, but I did want to hop on the call to be here to support you guys' efforts. As you know, we are fighting all the fights in Florida, and we need all the reinforcements that we can get. You have some fighters here on the call. And the work that you do within the community across all sectors. Everything is under attack. Black people, immigrants, women, anybody who cares about our democracy, it's all under attack. So, for those of us who care about issues, whether it's Haiti or Palestine or any of the things that we're feeling frustrated about, I just encourage people to really take some time to Google Project 2025 and Agenda 47. And, you know, I hate to do the best and worst thing, because we're always going to be pushing for more. We're going to be pushing for what we know to be right. But in the meantime, we have an existential threat. So, you know, we need to buck up, but continue to fight for the things that we know are important to our community, whether it's within the Democratic Party or, you know, when we're fighting across the aisle, because we know that the people that we're fighting against don't really care about people, because if they did, we would have things like common sense gun reform. We would have things like affordable healthcare and housing and the things that just allow people to live, that we are all entitled to and have dignity to deserve, intrinsically, regardless of your race, zip code, amount in your bank account. You deserve those basic things. So I am proud to be with you all as a continued champion on all of these issues. And I just want to encourage you to just keep up the fight. Thank you.
And I couldn't find my microphone. Thank you so much.
I was like,
Okay.
you want me to keep talking?
Yeah, I'm like, hey, I'm here, I'm coming.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Okay,
You're
and
welcome.
we're going to move on to the last speaker of the night, and that is Senator Chevron Jones. We're so excited that you're here with us. Thank you. We know that you just landed, so thank you for you know, sharing some time with the Labor Community Alliance. We are I don't know if anybody knows this, but Senator Jones is born and raised in Florida, in South Florida, actually in Miami Gardens, in Carol City. He was a teacher, and he taught chemistry in Broward County Public Schools, and then he served as the executive director of South Florida Reading Corps and funded the South Florida Youth Summit and Lad Nation, organizations that are pivotal in youth leadership and empowerment. Currently, Senator Jones is the DEC president or the DEC chair for Miami-Dade County, and we're very, very happy to have you here. Just to summarize a little bit of what we thought, so that you have an idea of what to respond. We talked about housing crisis. We talked about the attacks on labor and in public education. We talked about immigration. We talked about climate crisis, and we also talked about the lack of accessibility to healthcare and the need for Medicare for all. Senator Jones. Chef, are you here? Oh, we lost him. Who was here? Okay. So
Carolina, Michael Joseph is here.
Okay. Michael Joseph.
Michael, are you in?
So Commissioner Joseph is also a lawyer, and he's a commissioner in North Miami Beach, Florida. We're very happy to have you here.
Hello.
Okay.
Apologies. I'm going between meetings. I explained to Lorenzo I was gonna have to do a hard exit, and I didn't want to disturb the discussion. One thing I will say, I agree with everything you guys discussed. Adrian initially mentioned a plan that he wants to, that he's working to try to get passed to the county. I would love to see that being bifurcated city by city. I think there would be a lot more movement because we get a lot of pressure the local you get. And I would love for it to be bifurcated or at least segmented, depending on which city is able to do it, because certain cities have the ability and certain cities don't. They just need that pressure. But I totally agree on every standpoint discussed tonight, and I'm willing to and I share my sister from another mother, Daddy's point of view. We need to keep fighting, and I'm here to support. LCA and what we stand for, what we fight for. Sorry for the quick exit, but I just want to say thank you all for allowing me to speak. Michael Joseph, North Miami Beach. Stay safe, y'all.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you all. I think that we still don't have Senator Jones back, so we're going to.
You have Stanley Campbell for the U.S. Senate.
Stanley Campbell. Okay. Is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, go ahead. Respond. You have 5 minutes. 5 minutes to respond on the issues presented by the different organizations.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all of you. I was actually listening to basically it sounded like my campaign speech. I actually do have one, but I'll start with the first. When I'm elected to the United States Senate, having beaten Rick Scott like he stole something, because he did, I will be the 12th senator to sign the agreement for Medicare for all. And the reason I'm doing that is because I actually have the largest healthcare network in the United States. A message into every point of sale pharmacy in the United States and 5 of the 9 incorporated territories. And all I do all day is stop Medicare, Medicaid, Indian Health Services, DOD, and Veterans Affairs fraud. Fraud. I stop $120 million every single day of fraud. So I know what it looks like. I know what fraud looks like, and I know how to stop it. And I can tell you that $120 million every day only deals with about 4 to 5% of the market share, which means that 95% of that fraud that I stop, and I'm somewhat unique in that business, goes past. And when we talk about being able to sunset Medicaid or Medicare programs, this is the most disgusting thing that I've ever seen, particularly the person I'm running against, Rick Scott, who himself actually has the largest fraud identified in the history of the United States. But I don't stop there. We have insurance, and there's nothing that you can do in Tallahassee to affect our insurance. But we have a shared responsibility or shared risk, meaning the last storm that went through actually hit Texas, but it could easily have hit Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, or Texas. And by virtue of that, that means we have a shared responsibility. But we also share responsibility for recovery with the fires in California or the floods in Iowa. So my goal and objective is that we put insurance into the National Critical Infrastructure Protection Program. Now, I've worked on that program before as a person who worked defense and intelligence. There's 14 critical elements. Thank you for
your time. I'm sorry that I'm going to have to interrupt you. We didn't have you on the plan, and we're about to finish the meeting. Thank you for stopping by, though. And we're going to go to Jeff to close us off.
Okay, thank you. And for any of you guys, go to stanleyforflorida.com. That's stanleyforflorida.com. I kind of expected that, but in any case, I'll sign up again next time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Okay. Sorry about that. We do have a typed plan. Okay, guys. Jeff, let's move on.
Okay, let me begin by summarizing some of the points that the speakers began with, and begin with UTD, the United Teachers of Dade. The most important fight that labor it has in Florida, perhaps in a decade or more, is the UTD fight. It's a historical pivotal moment as the forces that want to destroy labor have targeted UTD first and foremost with this election that's happening between August 13th and September 24th. No doubt UTD will win that battle, and that will send a message to DeSantis and a message to all the anti-labor people, send a message to the Freedom Foundation. But it's a critical battle for all of labor, all of the community, frankly, because should they win, it will be horrible. And should they, being the Freedom Foundation, win, it'll be horrible for everybody. But should UTD win, it'll be great for everybody, lifting up the community, lifting up labor everywhere. So it's a battle for all of us. And then SMASH referenced the housing struggle and referenced the recommendations of affordablehousingframework.com, which everybody should go to. And he said that should those recommendations be put into place, then housing as a right could be established in the Miami-Dade area, in Miami-Dade County. And he said that those recommendations could be summarized by the acronym POM. But more broadly, SMASH is organizing for a Miami housing justice agenda, and they're striving to get 1.5 million signatures in support of that Miami housing agenda, justice agenda. So everybody should focus on trying to get to that website, trying to get to that organization, and try to sign on to that justice agenda. Florida Rising, the biggest, strongest organization in Florida, if nobody knows about it, everybody should know about it now, because they're working in 5 different areas: in housing, criminal justice reform, voting and democracy, climate, and reproductive rights, as well as working in a statewide Florida for All coalition. And they brought forward the dramatic story of low wages and housing injustice in Broward County that exposed the conditions that Florida Rising works on. And rounding it out, the need for Medicare for all was shown by the fact that 2 million people in Florida still have no insurance whatsoever right now, and how much common sense it makes for Medicare for all in Florida. And Terry also talked about the initiative for extending Medicaid for 1 million people, but that wouldn't, of course, happen even under the initiative until 2027. That was also discussed. So you've heard tonight from people in labor, in community, and in the political arena, all of whom in one way or another touched on the need for building working class power as a necessary step to advance the cause for these reforms, for tenant rights, Medicare for all, for labor rights. Because without that power, we have no influence and no voice. We know that poor and working people are sick and tired of being powerless. We know that they know that in their bones that the system is not designed for them, and it certainly does not work for them. It's frustrating on every front, where one factor of life impacts every other in a cascading fashion. In March, the U.S. government published statistics that showed that 21% of the labor force, in other words, 35.6 million people, found it difficult to make ends meet every week. In Florida, as the SMASH person noted, over 4 million households, there are 4 million households in Florida where rent takes up half the budget. A New York Times poll in March found that 69% thought that the political and economic system in the United States was so bad that it needed major changes or should be torn down entirely. In other words, 70% felt that the political and economic system was so bad that it needed major changes or needed to be torn down entirely. That means that there are tens of thousands in South Florida who are looking for solutions, both reforms in specific areas and systemic solutions. They need an organization that pulls the strands together from many different areas of struggle. And I want to bring us back to what Lorenzo said in the beginning. The Labor Community Alliance of South Florida is an alliance of labor and community organizations and individuals who believe in advancing working class power and social justice based on a foundation of fighting racism and discrimination in all its forms. We strive to serve as an organizational forum to unite those who want to revitalize labor and the labor movement in South Florida on the basis of organizing and mobilizing members, fighting discrimination, and uniting with community groups. We know that community groups will be stronger with active alliances with labor, and that the movement will be stronger when we all are working together. Aspiring to build such an alliance is one thing. Building it is another. We're not there yet, but we can be further along that road if you join us. Many unions and community groups have larger resources than we do. They face adversaries with bigger resources than we do. We don't pretend to have that level of money, but we do have networks. We do have skills. We do have a voice that can contribute. And we can amplify those strategies that need to be implemented at this critical moment. So join us. You can join by Zelle, or you can mail in a check to join. Send us the annual dues of $25 by Zelle, and you can do that by sending it to, and I'll put that information in the chat right now. And we hope that you join us, because you joining can make a difference for you and for us and for everybody. Because the more power we have, the more voices we have in our organization, the stronger the organization is, and the stronger the organization is, the more powerful our movement is. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for joining us, and have a good night. Keep up the fight.
Stay long enough to join. Stay long enough to look at that, how you can join and how you can pay those dues.
Please consider joining us. United, we will win.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night, Glenda.